everyone. So the other day I was just talking about looking at our lives, looking at every moment, every aspect of our lives, and try to figure out what it is that we're doing throughout our days to basically achieve our goals, to find a way to balance our lives, right? And today I decided to take my own advice and create a schedule. Now, the whole purpose behind this was actually kind of inspired by a video I watched of Arnold Schwarzenegger the other day, and he was talking about his 5 tips for success. But the main thing that I caught out of the whole thing, it's while there's these 5 tips, 5 things that he had followed, which actually turned out to be more than that, but the underlying presence behind the attitude to be able to do these things, right? I mean, it's the whole idea of, ignoring the naysayers, never take no for an answer, and always push yourself no matter what the odds. Set a vision, a dream. If you don't know where you're going to be doing circles. It's like you can be an amazing ship captain. You can flip your boat on its side and launch it up in the air and do backflips, whatever you want to do, right? But if you're just sitting in the middle of the ocean doing this by yourself all the time, you're not going anywhere. You're not doing anything with any of this. So you've got to plan a course. You've got to set a direction where you want to go. And so so set a vision, right? Where do you want to go? And work your ways towards there. Another thing that he had mentioned was also working your butt off, like really put your effort into it. You look at his lifestyle and where he started and where he ended up, and that doesn't come about just by hoping and wishing for things to happen. I mean, he really put a lot of effort to the point where his whole life was based about achieving these goals, right? And training 5 hours a day, and constantly focused on his vision and what he wanted to do. In less than 10 years he'd accomplished all this stuff. So have your vision, ignore the naysayers, work your butt off, and I'm trying to remember what the other 2 were. But like I said, it's not necessarily the points of what to focus on, but the determination, the willingness to be able to say, I'm going to forget about everything else and I'm just going to focus on my goals. If it doesn't contribute to my goals, then what's the point of investing the energy in it? So my whole goal, I mean, granted to have physical, spiritual, and mental goals, but overall, the whole purpose right now is to find balance between those 3 and to be able to master it, with ultimately being able to discard the mind and the physicality and just move straight into spirit. So today I went ahead and created a schedule. Now, what's funny about the schedule is when originally it started, I found a whole bunch of holes and gaps within it. So rather than just leave them open, found opportunities to be able to apply things. Now, everything in the first column is related to spiritual goals. And that can vary, from reading spiritual scriptures, the self-realization fellowship lessons, energization exercises, meditations. And then there's always the focus on God. And that's pretty much where we have to start off with. It's kind of like our base point. It's like we focus on our awareness of the Creator, right? And then we look out beyond that into this experience. There was a story that I'd read a couple days ago called, what was it? The saint that chose a king for his guide, for his spiritual guide or for his guru. And basically it goes into a discussion there talking about how towards the end of the story, the disciple had to have he had to carry 2 oil lamps completely filled to the brim through an entire palace and go into every single room of the palace and not spill a drop of oil by the time he came back. After 2 or 3 hours, he came back and he was able to do it, but turns out that he paid no attention to anything in any of the rooms. He was so focused on the oil and not dripping the oil that he had forgotten to pay attention to what else was in the room. So he had to go back and redo it again, and the second time took him about 10 hours, but he came back with no oil spilled and was able to describe everything he had seen in the room. The premise behind this is basically the stating that keeping your awareness on the oil lamps so you don't drip the oil is what you would do with your consciousness in regards to focusing on God. Keep that first and primary, but don't just focus on that. We're in this experience for a reason, so don't discard it. Just because you have this awakening process is, now I know about God, and now I know about consciousness, and now I just want to focus on this, and I'm going to become a hermit and forget about the rest of the world. It doesn't work that way. I did that for a couple of years, and now I'm here. So it's about encompassing everything. So focus on God, focus on spirit first. Then as you're going throughout your days, in this case, focusing on mind through a practice called Hong Sao. Now, this can get really, really deep, but just kind of a recap or a synopsis on what Hong Sao is. The idea is, we hear of a lot of practices when they're teaching meditation to focus on your breath, right? We have what they call a monkey mind. The mind always wants to do something. You can't just say stop. It doesn't work that way. So instead of telling the mind to stop, you give it another task. Focus on something else. And what Hong Sao does is it teaches one to focus on something, and in this case, focus on the breath. Whenever the mind wants to jump off of focusing on the breath to go do something else, you bring it back in to focus back on the Hong Sao technique. And by continuing to do that over and over and over, repetitively on a daily basis, you start to form a habit to be able to train the mind to focus on whenever you want to, when you want it to. So it's not like I'm focusing on this for 1 second, then all of a second, now I'm thinking about something else while I'm focusing on this. Hong Sao teaches you to basically train the mind so whenever I want to focus on something, I don't care whatever else you want to go jump on. This is what we're focusing on now. So let's stay here. And we do it on your inhale breath. Now, this isn't a breath exercise. You're not forcing your air in and out. Nothing. You're just breathing normally, naturally, like you normally would. The difference is you shift your awareness, your mind, to focusing on your breath. And as you naturally hear yourself or feel yourself breathing in, you hear in your mind hung. Hung. And on the way out, sa. Sa. And if you put earplugs in and close your eyes, you can actually hear your breath. Your breath sounds like hong sa, hong sa, hong sa. And that's the technique. Now, there's a lot of other things that come out of that technique, because the more you focus on something, it's awareness, right? It's like if you're in a dark room and you can't see anything, if you point a flashlight, now all of a sudden you start seeing in different areas. And if you look closer and closer and you move closer with the flashlight, you start to reveal more detail. And that's one of the main focuses with Hong Sao, because it's focusing on the breath, and it teaches you through awareness and through realization that the breath is what ties the consciousness to the body, and consciousness is separate from the body. So by constantly practicing Hong Sao, you're shining light, you're shining awareness on the fact that your consciousness is not this breath, and you'll be able to detach yourself perceptually from this body. But that's a whole nother discussion. It gets really, really detailed. So basically, on this schedule, spirit and mind is active in every moment. I'm either focusing on God or practicing Hong Sao, which is really no difference, because practice on Hong Sao is focusing on God. So the idea is that is the base perception, the base point of view, and then whenever I need to do something, then I shift out of that to go do something else. So like the physical, doing energization exercises, showering in the mornings, writing, practicing the 4 pillars of singing. All of these different things are the physical aspects that I do throughout the day in order to achieve the goals. So throughout the entire day, it's always applying some aspect to either spirit, mind, physicality, or the ultimate goal to be able to balance all 3 in the moment at all times. So right now, the only thing that doesn't fall in line with this is my work situation. And, eventually I know that'll change. I'm not even working on that. That's something that's going to happen and manifest by itself, because whatever ends up replacing this is going to be something that's more in alignment with what I'm doing now. So rather than try to pick it out, I'm just going to continue focusing on the balance and just naturally let that basically disappear and be replaced by whatever else. The idea here is that by consciously investing this energy in doing these practices and adhering to this schedule, I'm constantly putting out a message to God, creation, in every moment, in every day, that this is the experience that I want to have. This is where I'm going to invest my energy. And if I'm not investing my energy in any of this, then obviously I don't need to have it in my experience. So I'm planting seeds right now. I'm seeing where I would like to be in several years, but I'm doing it from a smaller perspective. My sister said she wanted to be a photographer, and she said she wanted to be a photographer for National Geographic. Okay, great. She wants to travel and take pictures of animals. So knowing that that's her goal, that's where she'd like to be, let's break it down to the simplest of components. She wants to take pictures, okay? She wants to travel, okay? Pictures of animals specifically, yes, okay. So how can I start doing that now? Go to a zoo, go out into nature, just grab your camera, go out, travel, leave your house, go drive somewhere, go find an event, go take pictures, whatever you want to do. Do whatever it is that you see yourself doing on a large scale, but on a small scale. And just keep feeding it energy, keep watering it, plant your seeds and continue to water and continue to water it. Today you might only be going to, the local zoo to take pictures, and your traveling might be, 15, 20 minutes down the street. But if you're doing this all the time, eventually that's going to grow and blossom. Your traveling is going to become further away. The places and venues you go to are going to become larger. Everything continues to expand as long as you put energy. It's just how reality and consciousness works. What you focus on, you get more of. So, didn't mean to go this long on it just to try to explain a schedule, but I would like to go a little bit deeper into these practices and why I chose these things and how I see that they can benefit in the future. So for now, I am not currently doing all of this stuff right now. So the first challenge is going to be to make this the goal right now. To make this happen every day. Now, this is only Monday through Friday. I still haven't figured out how the weekends are going to happen yet, so we'll get there when we get there. So, till next time.